여러분 안녕하세요.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to meet you. Welcome to the third day of the 2021 World Forum for Intangible Cultural Heritage.
World Forum for Intangible Cultural Heritage. 저는 이번 포럼의 사회를 맡은 전주 MBC 아나운서 목서윤입니다.
My name is Mok Sa-yoon. I'm an announcer at Jeonju MBC, and I'll be your mistress of ceremonies for today's forum. This forum can be broadcast and watched live on the YouTube channels of ICHCAP, Cultural Heritage Administration, and Jeonju MBC, as well as the forum's official website. And if you've been here with us for the last 2 days, you would know that we are also streaming this on a metaverse. I'd like to ask you for your participation until the very end. The World Forum for Intangible Cultural Heritage was held under the theme of ICH in Cities in 2017, ICH in Peace in 2018, ICH in Civic Life in 2019, ICH Human Nature in 2020, and this year in 2021, it is being held under the theme of Rediscovering Intangible Cultural Heritage in the Era of Convergence and Creativity. Over the last 2 days, we were able to learn about the challenges that are facing intangible cultural heritage in the era of convergence and creativity, and we also looked at possibilities for innovation and value creation from ICH. Today, for our third session, we will have a special session of millennials who will be talking about the future of ICH. And at the main session, we will have presentations from experts from the UK, Singapore, Thailand, and Korea. And they'll be talking about the creative value and the future of ICH. If you have any questions, please submit your questions to our YouTube channels or the forum's official website, and we will make sure to reflect your questions and opinions in the discussion session. We do hope that all of our participants here today can rediscover the value of ICH in the era of convergence and creativity. And with that, we would like to begin the third day in earnest. First, we would like to go to a special session on the future of ICH, envisioned by MZ Generation. And this will be moderated by Ms. Duong Bik Han of the UNESCO Bangkok office.
Dear distinguished guests, dear colleagues and friends, a good day to you all. It is a great pleasure for me to be the moderator of the future of intangible cultural heritage envisioned by MZ Generation within the scope of the 2021 World Forum for Intangible Cultural Heritage. I am obviously not a member of the MZ Generation, but as intergenerational connection is such an important aspect of safeguarding intangible cultural heritage, I hope that I can do justice in moderating this session today. Our session presents the outcomes of the 2021 Intangible Cultural Heritage Youth Summit that took place yesterday, hosted by ICHCAP on the virtual world of Metaverse. 44 participants from 15 countries joined the summit, most of whom came from Asia Pacific, but also Europe. This really is a testament for youth eagerness in networking and learning from one another, not only across the countries, but also across the regions, and the power of technology in bringing people together. During the summit, we listened to the inspirational stories of 9 young professionals. They come from a diverse range of backgrounds. Some are students, while others are working professionals. Some come from big cities, while others are members of indigenous groups. Most of them work in cultural fields, but there's also a civil engineer. It really shows how safeguarding heritage could and should be considered as responsibility of everyone, as indeed intangible cultural heritage is everywhere around us. Pooja Amartya's work in Kathmandu, Nepal, clearly showed us a strong interconnection between tangible and intangible cultural heritage. Zhang Xiao's research on ancient textiles taught us that while ICH is very much living, it is also worthwhile to look back to history to learn more about how it was practiced in the past. Han Lu's comparative study on porcelain making in China and Korea demonstrated how ICH in many countries are shared. Dong Hyun's Kim told us about a complex project of documenting and presenting 25 ICH elements in Jeongsu, Korea, while highlighting an important role of formal and informal education in engaging youth. Implementing educational activities related to ICH is also a focus of Akanksha Tatet in Mumbai and Ahmedabad, India. Ponepaset Kyosomsak showcased how safeguarding puppetry practices in Luang Prabang, Lao PDR, can generate better livelihood for local communities while increasing appreciation for it among younger generations. Moshumi Chaudhuri of India managed to challenge the gender norms to bring her arts of chow dancing to a wide range of audience. Chandra Tripura, an indigenous cultural activist of Bangladesh, highlighted the roles of indigenous youth as well as challenges they are currently facing in safeguarding their ICH. In whatever forms and wherever they were implemented, the youth participants to the 2021 ICH Youth Summit have demonstrated how safeguarding ICH can contribute to the well-being and sustainability of local communities. They all share a passion for safeguarding their cultural heritage and call for a more active role for youth to play in these endeavors. Youth are the bridge between the past and the future, and if the bridge is broken, we will forever lose our heritage. The Youth Summit participants also agreed on the needs to establish a youth network for safeguarding intangible cultural heritage. The experiences shared by Si-Won Lee on Korea ICH Youth Network founded at the 2020 World Forum for ICH gave us good lessons learned. By adopting the declaration, Intangible Cultural Heritage Safeguarding and Collaboration, youth participants reaffirmed their commitment to the youth network in Asia Pacific, which aims to serve as a platform to amplify multiple voices and multiple knowledge of the regional youth, where the members, regardless of backgrounds and professions, will share good practices, develop joint projects in collaboration with one another, with the communities, and with also other external partners. In the session today, we will be hearing from and talking with 4 representatives of the Youth Summit. I would like to invite the first speaker, Mr. Ponepaset Kyosomsak of Lao PDR, who will talk to us about intangible cultural heritage interpretation through puppet. Over to you, Ponepaset.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to share some information with all of you today. My name is Ponepaset Kyosomsak. I am from Luang Prabang, Laos, India. I would like to share part of my research, experience, and practice on intangible cultural heritage. Does have been done under North South Group, a local group of Luang Prabang. The issue is, according to the COVID-19 pandemic, a local cultural representative, ICH including artists, craftsmen, are in difficulty. There are some losing their job or switching to be low skill. Unfortunately, some of them pass away with their collective skill and wisdom. In the meantime, digital disruption become both an opportunity and threat. It offers a platform for local cultural representative of ICH to demonstrate their local identities and practice. Why artificial intelligence replacing the representative in cultural interpretation? Therefore, North South Group try to fix the issue that I mentioned above. Local puppet or epoch is employed to foster and protect the local intangible cultural heritage. Therefore, I try to interpret cultural meaning and value as well as ICH through puppet. Puppet represent all category of Puppet represent all category of ICH. Puppet is a tool for cultural interpretation all ICH domains, such as oral tradition, expansion, performing art, social practice, ritual, acknowledgement, traditional handcraft. So this is, I would like to show you the framework of the project. Sorry for my technical problem. Yes. Yes, this what I do in Puppet. Puppet is like a center representative of cultural heritage. On the left side, we have the ritual, we have the poem, we have the craftsmen, we have, this is our presentation, and yes, and this is our group. Now our group is the found in 2009. Our mission is promote and supporting traditional practice and conservation process, both tangible and intangible cultural heritage. Our group, we focus 4 kinds of activity: traditional performing art, flower arrangement, textile, and gold leaf. So after here, and I have short video for what are we doing in our community. The technical will be open for me, please. Thank you so much for me present our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Punepaset. Next, I would like to invite Ms. Chandra Tripura of Bangladesh to talk to us about Indigenous youth perspectives on ICH safeguarding and transmission, challenges and ways forward. Over to you, Chandra.
Thank you. Kulum Kal, warm greetings from all the Indigenous youths from Asia. I'm really very happy to be a part of this World Forum for Intangible Cultural Heritage. all of you know that there are approximately 476 million indigenous peoples around the world, according to the international level organization, who spread across more than 90 countries and also speak more than 4,000 languages. And although indigenous peoples comprise 5% of the world's population, indigenous peoples also safeguard 80% of the planet's biodiversity. And although we have been able to adopt in the Intangible Cultural Heritage Convention in 2003, there is still a sense of inclusiveness, recognition of human rights and indigenous people's rights, and being the power of indigenous communities and future generation of our indigenous communities. Indigenous youths' perspectives should be taken into consideration throughout the whole process. I will be talking about how indigenous youths are practicing their intangible cultural heritage, as well as how they are thinking that indigenous people's living heritage and their culture should be included in throughout the process of intangible cultural heritage. When we think about the convention and about the policies, both in the national and international level for safeguarding intangible cultural heritage and its transmission, we think a few things that there must recognition of indigenous people's rights need to be recognized, representation and meaningful participation of indigenous peoples, including indigenous youths, need to be ensured, and inclusiveness that will ensure the cultural diversity of the diverse community throughout the world. And also there is a need for a strategic and long-term vision in terms of safeguarding and transmission of our intangible cultural heritage around the world. And without mutual trust, respect, and well understanding and foreseeage, which are cooperation, collaboration, coordination, and collective action, we cannot be able to achieve a creative, innovative, and using the technology to ensure sustainable, intangible cultural heritage safeguarding and transmission. Well, there are many challenges we face, particularly indigenous communities and the indigenous youths while practicing and promoting their cultures, their living heritage and intangible cultural heritage, because there is lack of recognition of indigenous people's rights, both in the national level, in their own state, in their respective countries, and also in the international processes of safeguarding and transmission of intangible cultural heritage. There is lack of inclusion of indigenous people's representatives in both country and the international level of in the processes of ICH safeguarding. And there is also absence of inclusive policy for ICH safeguarding and transmission. Exclusion of indigenous youth in ICH safeguarding processes is another challenge for us to be a part of the safeguarding of ICH. And there are some external forces as well, which we know that in this globalization era, tourism is another factor we cannot avoid. But if it happened through the community of tourism, we will be able to overcome and embrace all the challenges. But all these challenges, particularly the external forces, compelled indigenous communities, particularly youth, to fear losing their culture and intangible heritages. Well, all the indigenous youths think that there are still, a possibility, and with collective action we can achieve, we can go forward for inclusiveness and to protect and promote all the cultural heritages we have. For that, we envision that an inclusive youth network will be able to promote and protect all our intangible cultural heritages. And within that network, an inclusive youth policy for effective and meaningful participation is highly required, where a strategic and long-term vision through youth lens is very much required. Research, documentation, and the innovative action is another thing that we need to think about throughout the process. And a global campaign is really very much important to proceed with all the plans. And also, we highly require support, both financial and technical support in the community level for our youth-led actions, and capacity building for youths in ICH fields, because we lack experts among the youths in the field of ICH. And all these things will be able to will be able to ensure only with recognition, protection, and promotion of indigenous people's rights. And for that, we need to ensure and we need to initiate all the possibilities by youth, for youth, and with youth. Thank you for listening to me. I believe that this World Forum will lead us to a hopeful process that will be able to ensure the inclusiveness and the recognition of indigenous people's rights, including all the indigenous youths and other minority youths, other vulnerable groups, particularly the youths and their rights. Thank you. Kambai.
Thank you very much, Chandra, for sharing with us the views of the indigenous youth in Asia Pacific region. Next, I would like to invite Ms. Pooja Amatia of Nepal to talk to us about a civil engineer's perspective on cultural heritage. Over to you, Pooja.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Ram. Is my slide visible? Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be on this platform and present in front of so many people and so many experts on cultural heritage and intangible cultural heritage, especially. I'm Pooja Amatia. I'm a civil engineer by profession, and I've been doing a research on one of the projects in Nepal at Kathmandu University Department of Music. This is a project named Rebuilding Tripureshwar Mahadev Temple, Sattles and Garden Area. It is one of the important cultural heritage site in Kathmandu Valley, which is the capital of the country. And most probably this is a picture of 2015 Gorkha earthquake, where the top roof of the temple is like fallen down. And this is a picture of the temple around 150 years ago, taken from a Bagmati river, which flows from north of the country to the south of the country. Actually, the main vision of the project is to rebuild and restore. Tripura Sundari is the name of this temple. It is the short name of this temple. To cultivate the concept of the amalgamation of cultural, tangible heritage with the intangible musical heritage. And you might be surprised why I'm talking about being a civil engineer and a music department is getting into such kind of great projects. Is like, it is not just the construction project or the tangible heritage, but we want to amalgamate the musical heritage of Nepal, throughout Nepal, into this small project. And since I have been working as a civil engineer here, and a researcher as well. My research is based on this project. I'm more into construction phase right now. Even you can see I'm here at the site working. And after the construction is complete, we want to get the musical heritage from entire country of Nepal, from like 75 districts of Nepal into this single platform, so that the intangible thing comes into one platform and gets into education, so that lots of youngsters can know about what the music is about and what the local music, which is like knowledge, and that is to be learned by each and every one of us in Nepal. This is a picture right after 2015 earthquake, on the day of earthquake. The top roof, it's a pagoda style temple, and the top roof has gone down. You can see lots of debris being cleared in the ground level. And this is what we've done after 2015. Like, it's come to its exact what it really was. Like, this is the picture of a pinnacle which dropped down. And it took us like 9 months to just preserve this pinnacle, which is around 19 feet tall. It's gold gilded pinnacle with lots of traditional workers working on it. And a section of this pinnacle has been drawn here. This is what my research is all about. The knowledge that traditional workers and traditional practices that we have in our country is not being documented, and what we want to do in so that it is known by not just our traditional workers but our young generations also. Like, these are some of our workers whose knowledge needs to be preserved and documented, and not just documented, it should be transmitted to the younger society, or the knowledge, because we're just focused towards concrete and steel structures, which is like modern technology, but we've lost what traditional techniques are. Like, we use lots of mm, traditional ways, tools to carve this single piece of art. Not We don't use machineries, but how do we get that knowledge from our older generations to our new generations? Is by just documenting them, by doing a research, and that's what intangible knowledge is to be preserved and transferred to our society. Like, this roof structure, people have lost, people have not even do not have a knowledge of how to do it, because they're just old people who were attracted towards these kind of works, and young generations are more towards the modern technologies. And what we want to do is preserve this kind of knowledge and transmit to the young generations. This is a picture of our team, where you can see the one with a blue hat, that is Dr. Lochan Rizal, the only ethnomusicologist in Nepal, who whatever I talked about right now is all his vision of transmission of knowledge from our society to education through Kathmandu University, through education, which is, I think, would be the best ways. And this is kind of music that just one part of music that we have in Nepal, in Tarai region, which is the south of Nepal. And this is just an example, just a short example of what we want to get into our education. Yes, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Pooja. Last but not least, I would like to invite Mr. Si-Won Lee of the Republic of Korea to talk to us about the importance of youth networking and how to develop the ICH youth forums in the future. Over to you, Si-Won.
Thank you, Han. As she introduced, I'm Ji-Won Lee from South Korea. The purpose of my presentation today is the importance of youth networking and how to develop the ICH youth forums in the future. To begin with, full of youth organizations carry out various activities for safeguarding ICH in their ways by transmission, research, campaign, policymaking, and the like around the world. Moreover, the young generation is one of the most important stakeholders in sustainable development and also exuberant policy participants in many organizations, including UNESCO. Today, with the development of information and communication technology, it is possible to communicate in seconds on the other side of the earth. However, there is still lack of international exchanges due to the exclusive nature of the ICH field and the indifference or technical limitations of the local communities. Furthermore, many international stages are overflowing with programs and projects aimed at young people, but they do not contain only narrow. They do contain only narrow range of use because of the trouble like information imbalances and income gaps. Of course, its community may have strong internal ties, but nonetheless, the world is gradually moving toward a hyper-connected, hyper-convergence, and hyper-diversity society. Therefore, we established the network to share and overcome the challenges faced by young generation in this field and propose and practice more effective safeguarding measures by communication and cooperation. Our goals are to promoting sharing information, raising awareness and capacity building of young people, and to encouraging social participation of them actively from a passive perspective so that they can take lead in safeguarding ICH. We've done diverse activities and also plan to organize some else. We share all of these on our SNS. The ICH Youth Forums would be meaningful and fruitful in itself. However, I want to suggest several things to embrace the voices of more various people and move toward a sustainable event. First of all, we have to lower the linguistic barriers. What I felt from some case studies is that many young individuals or organizations carry out exemplary activities, but there are no proper information exchanges because of the invisible barriers among us. Therefore, it would be great if each country or institutions like UNESCO and HCAP support interpreters covering diverse languages, including consideration of the disabled, such as sign language. Secondly, there is a need to continue the conversation from forums to such programs or projects. I mean, if some speakers propose any outstanding measures for safeguarding ICH, they must be practiced in reality, and therefore we could get a chance to apply them to other environments. For instance, we can plan a summer camp or workshop to develop the ideas and learn or train the excellences of the cases. In addition, through those kinds of programs, we can also explore side effects and improvement ways. Lastly, to emphasize, it's critical to share the achievements with others. It could stimulate additional interest and creativity by allowing all kinds of accesses regardless of age, gender, race, class, or income level. For example, we can use SNS, ICH links, and websites of related agencies. If it works out well, it would lead to the influx of newcomers accordingly, and people can find the solutions about many typical challenges much easily. In my opinion, how you share your achievement with others is as crucial as how outstanding you perform. We need to concern and cooperate fiercely about that point. I want to express my deep gratitude to other participants from all over the world and HCAP, making this priceless opportunity. I do believe we can continue this relationship to networking more actively after this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Siwon. Thank you for your sharing and your suggestion. So we only have a few minutes left for the session, and I would like to invite all the speakers today to reflect on the question that I'm going to give the next moment and share with us your views on this. So the question is, how do you envision a youth-led forum?
what kind of activities do you suggest that the forum develops with a view to safeguard ICH and to build cooperation between youth around the region and around the globe? Please be precise. Do you want to start, Suwon? And then we can walk back backward.
Okay. I already said a lot, so I'll just add some briefly. From my point of view, the core of ICH is to encompass diversity. So we need to listen to the people embracing various ages, genders, reasons, and occupations. Furthermore, there are agendas the young people are more familiar with, such as how to use digital technology, what kind of education or roles is interests, and like as the older generation knows a lot of what the younger generation doesn't know. Therefore, the youth forums should be accessible to various people and should raise their awareness and strengthen the capacity of young people. Then the young generation will be able to continue noble and fruitful discussions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, inclusivity will be a very key important factor for our forum. Thank you for your advice. Pooja, would you like to share your view?
Yes, sure. What I think about is this kind of forum would be a great platform for people and young generations like us to express what we've been doing at our own levels, like we're doing it in local level. And when it gets when the idea gets into bigger forums like this, and lots of people get to hear about it, and which might increase the knowledge to other people as well. And moreover, what I think about is if we do lots of research, and if we are able to bring young generations into different kinds of research programs related to intangible cultural heritage, and just not just the intangible, the cultural and the tangible heritage as well, then there'd be more education to people. And I think education would be the best platform for to transmit the knowledge that the older generations have into the younger generations, and that might be the best way to preserve our cultural heritage, and just do more research on it, and get more people do lots of new experiments on what can be done and what can be good for the future society. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pooja. I hear talk about research and education are certainly very important safeguarding and transmission measure. And yeah, let's take into account innovation that youth have abundance as well. Thank you. Over to you, Chandra. Would you like to share? You already elaborated quite a lot in the last part of your presentation, but if you have some additional points, please share with us.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Han, for the question. Well, this kind of World Forum for ICH, particularly the Youth Forum, is really necessary for us, to bring the voice from the grassroots level and to exchange the strategies to safeguard and transmission, for this ICH, and also to seek attention of the international processes, right? And this kind of processes is really important to re-educate ourselves, and the main vision should be to re-educate ourselves, and for an inclusive platform where we can actually revive ICH culture and protect, promote our cultures through using, innovative, creative ideas, and also through because last week I think some speakers already mentioned about how the young generation are misusing the technology, but we can still properly utilize our technology to protect our cultures and the intangible cultural heritage. Yes, of course, this platform is important to particularly to re-educate ourselves and to protect, promote, document, and represent to the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandra. The last words I would like to give to Punepaset to share with us his views.
Yes, the first thing coming up on my head, I'm thinking about the support the local cultural representative more opens their space and also this platform should be have a kind of inventory list about the intangible cultural heritage platform. Everybody can be accessed, and the one things I thinking about the bridge program, we can directly experience through various country, young generation who work with the culture, intangible cultural heritage, and also, yes, we can learn from that bridge program by couple country or focus Asian or focus somewhere. We can start that first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all speakers for your great presentations today and the great insights that you just shared. We look forward to hearing your updates about the activities of the Youth Network, and we also hope that you will continue with conviction in bringing youth collective voices to exchange, to raise awareness, to strengthen capacity, and to advocate for policy changes to build an enabling environment in which ICH is respected, safeguarded, and transmitted as guided by the 2003 Convention for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage. Thank you to the audience and hope you will enjoy the rest of the 2021 Youthled Forum.
Thank you very much, Program Specialist Duong Big Han of the UNESCO Bangkok office, as well as the representatives of the Youth Network. This is the 5th World Forum for Intangible Cultural Heritage, and in 2017 it was held under the theme of cities, in 2018 peace, 2019 civic life, 2020 human nature and ICH. And this year, it is being held under the theme of Rediscovering Intangible Cultural Heritage in the Era of Convergence and Creativity. This forum can be streamed online in the Jeonju MBC Cha and UNESCO ICHCAP websites and YouTube channels, as well as the official forum's website. We're also streaming this live on our metaverse. You would be able to see it on your screen right now, and we ask you for your participation. With that, we would like to move into the next session held under the theme of Creative Value and Future of ICH, and this will be our final session. We'll moderate it by Professor Lee Soo-gi of Hotel and Tourism Management at Sejong University. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lee Soo-gi. I find it a great pleasure to be here with everyone. Thank you to all of our presenters and panelists participating in the 3rd session of the 2021 World Forum for Intangible Cultural Heritage. Thank you to our online participants on our YouTube channels and Metaverse. This session is being held under the theme of creative value and future of ICH. What will the future of ICH look like? We've had a special session involving the MZ generation, talking about the future of the safeguarding and transmission of ICH. Now that we have this vision, we need a specific set of strategies. And in this third session, we would like to look at some specific market strategies for value creation for ICH, and also the potential and the possibilities of ICH from the perspective of creative economy. We look at local fair trade or using media for advertising. Various different case examples and strategies will be explored in this session. For our participants on YouTube, please feel free to submit your questions and comments on our YouTube chat windows, and they will be reflected in the discussion session later on with our panelists. For our first presentation, we would like to hear from Harriet Deakin, Honorary Research Fellow at the University of Cape Town on Market Strategy for the Value Creation of ICH. Professor Harriet Deakin is an honorary research fellow at the University of Cape Town, and she has been working as a facilitator for capacity building for the 2003 convention, has worked very actively in that regard. Since 2018, she has led different projects by the British Academy and the British Council, worked together with communities in India and Kyrgyzstan on heritage-sensitive intellectual property marketing strategy development. She is consistently researching on sustainability of ICH. Please give her a big round of applause.
Thank you very much. Thank you also for inviting me to be on this panel. I'm very excited to be part of this conversation and very inspired by what we've heard from the youth presenters already today. And I think really what Siwan put on the table, and I think is really important, is to now be practical. How can we help promoting and protecting intangible cultural heritage in the market? And the issue I'm going to be speaking about is a project I've been involved in looking at a practical tool called heritage sensitive marketing and intellectual property strategies to do that. We call that HIPAMS for short. We've been hearing a lot about the cultural economy and what intangible cultural heritage can do as a sort of resource for the development of creative industries. But at the same time, we need to think not just about what ICH can do for the market, but what the market can do for ICH and for the people that have invested their community's time and effort over generations in creating these resources. And it's really this feedback loop that we need to start talking about when we think about practical strategies for ICH in the market, so that those practical strategies can benefit the communities. In the UNESCO context around intangible cultural heritage, there's been historically a lot of concern that ICH is actually at risk from the market, that commercial forces could play a negative role in decontextualizing ICH, commodifying it, or over-commercializing. And there's also been an anxiety that there's an imbalance of power between communities who practice ICH and market forces. At the same time, since about 2015 or so, there's been an increased emphasis in UNESCO on ICH and sustainable development, and many communities need to use their ICH in the market for livelihoods. So the key question then is, how can one practically think about how communities of practice that are using ICH in the market can somehow control the engagement with the market so that they can benefit, so that we see that down arrow working well for the communities and not just for big business. So the project I've been involved in, we call it for short HIPAMS India. And I've put the website there, hipamsindia.org, if you want to have a look online at the project. was funded by the British Academy, led at Coventry University by Charlotte Valde, and at banglanatak.com by Ananya Bhattacharya. And essentially what we did in this project is we brought together some academic specialists together with an NGO working with communities and 3 different ICH communities in West Bengal, India, who already were making livelihoods from their heritage crafts and performances. But what they wanted to do was to exert greater control over their relationship with the market, and they also wanted to expand their market in some cases. And what we did was we developed this model called HIPAMS, Heritage Sensitive Intellectual Property and Marketing Strategies. And the idea is that you are focused on community concerns and needs, areas where they feel they need support to manage how they are marketing and commercializing their ICH, and bring together into that space some understanding of how do we manage the heritage issues, how do we ensure heritage safeguarding, and then also bring in marketing skills and intellectual property rights or legal skills. There were a number of outputs from the project, which you can see on the website. We developed strategies co-created with the 3 communities. We developed a toolkit discussing the methodology, and there are various reports and policy briefs also available there. Essentially, the idea is if communities are already engaging in the market and wanting to use their ICH for sustainable development, the HIPAMs are aimed at helping to understand how to maximize this engagement with the market for heritage safeguarding. Sorry, and how to maximize the marketing the benefit for heritage safeguarding as well as for expanding the market, and then how to use intellectual property tools such as geographical indications or copyright or trademarks to support heritage safeguarding and marketing. And all of this is oriented around community needs. So what we developed was a HIPAMS model, and that looked first at diagnosis, seeing where the problems were, how were communities perhaps struggling to control the engagement with the market, where did they want to expand, and so on. And then secondly, strategy development, looking at what kinds of strategies could be used to improve the situation. And here being quite practical, because obviously many communities don't have the money to go to court. You want to have very practical, implementable solutions. And then strategy implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. And you can see here we've developed also a number of tools to help communities to navigate these different stages. Most of the tools are in the diagnostic stage because we felt that current assistance for communities around cultural industry development actually didn't spend enough time on diagnostics. There's a lot of support for cultural and creative industries in marketing and IP tools, but there's not a lot of support in how to manage these issues in relation to heritage. And so what our departure point was really rethinking, how do we think about heritage in relation to the market? Because there hasn't been enough discussion about this, whether in academia or in UNESCO, except in a rather negative sense that we are concerned that there might be over-commercialization. The first, we had 3 main points about the heritage reconceptualization. The first was you should think about what are the roots of the heritage as well as how that relates to the fruits or the products that you might put on the market. So what are the skills, meanings, traditions that you're actually utilizing for creating those products. And then to focus much less on whether each individual product is authentic as a kind of metric for how good the engagement is with the market for heritage safeguarding, and thinking more about how does market engagement enable the maintenance of heritage skills repertoire over time. So the ability of communities to continue practicing their heritage over time is not really limited if a couple of products are not authentic, let's say, in the terminology some people use. And then to think not just about heritage life cycle itself, a particular heritage element, does it last over time or not, but also think about the ecosystem of heritage and how different heritage practices within a community relate to each other. So when we come to thinking about strategies, we thought about these strategies in terms of two interlinked dimensions. The one is community empowerment. How do communities work together to control their relationship with the market? What kind of skills do they have to do that? And then the reputation of the heritage, not just in the market as a product, but also within the community as a kind of legitimate source of meaning and benefit and livelihood. And then the second dimension is between the skills repertoire, which I've already spoken about, and then this question of innovation. How do communities of artists think about innovation in relation to the market, and how heritage sensitive that innovation is? And if you take the roots and fruits model, it helps you to think about what kinds of innovation do you want to see in the community. So this is from the artist perspective. It helps them to think about how they want to see innovation, what kinds of innovation they want to bring in, and what kinds of heritage skills and repertoires they want to continue. So just taking an example and coming back now to this practical issue that Simon, I think, quite rightly highlighted. It's all very well talking about these things in theory, but do they work? And so we did, just giving you a few examples from one of the communities that we worked with in Naya village in Pingla, West Bengal. There are about 80 Patachitra artist families, also known as Patuas. And they practice a tradition of singing with a painted scroll, which has a story on it. And they wanted to do a couple of different things in their strategy. And I'll just talk about some of the tools that we developed with them. So the first thing we did in the community to address some of the issues they raised was to work on community empowerment in three ways. The one was to talk about artists' rights and to do some training around the use of copyright. What are their rights as artists automatically? And then secondly, how do they use, they already had a geographical indication registered, how do they use that? The second area of empowerment that we worked on was digital storytelling, around how do community artists actually do their own direct marketing for themselves using digital media and other tools. And then thirdly, how do artists work together to do more collective marketing? They already had an artists organization, but how could they maximize the role of that in presenting themselves in the market? So some of the artists designed Patachitra scrolls using the traditional methodology to explain artist rights and the geographical indication to each other, and also to start using those tools to explain artist rights to other communities. We also worked with the artists on developing an art code, which is a code of ethics that helps artists to explain artist rights, and not just to each other, but also to third parties. So if they are negotiating with a gallery, for example, on sale of their products to the gallery. They found it quite useful to have the art code with them, and it very clearly states what their rights are, and the fact that people who purchase their designs have to ask for their permission in order to use those designs commercially. So that's given the artists quite a lot more negotiating power in their interactions with third parties. When we did the digital storytelling and training and the diagnostics on the heritage roots and fruits, one of the issues that we discovered was that for the artists, the singing is a very important part of the tradition. And yet a lot of the products that they're selling actually don't obviously involve the songs anymore, because they're selling scrolls or they're selling paintings. So one of the challenges for the marketing side to make it heritage sensitive was to link the songs back to the products. And we did that by co-designing some packaging and labels with the community, where we had a QR code so that their digital storytelling and the songs that they were singing on the online clips could be linked to the products. And what we found was that this helped to encourage younger boys who really had stopped being interested in singing back into that part of the tradition. And then finally, we tried to find ways to harness visitors to the village to help with their marketing, and also to raise visitor awareness about what artists' rights were. So in summary, we have these concerns about ICH engagement with the market, but we can also see its potential. And I think what's very important is to see the role of practical projects like HiPAMs in helping to maximize benefits for ICH communities and minimize risks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Harriet Deacon, about the value creation and sustainability of ICH, and particularly the market strategies. That was very helpful.
Let us now move on to the next presentation on the intangible cultural heritage and the creative economy. Mr. Youthled Forum, Director of Heritage Research and Assessment at National Heritage Board of Singapore, will be giving the presentation. Mr. Yeo worked in a wide range of portfolios, including the preservation of sites and monuments, community outreach, and strategic planning, and he oversees the development of national policies and initiatives of safeguard and promote Singapore's intangible cultural heritage, and to engage communities in the research and promotion of cultural heritage in Singapore. And he is currently a member of the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage Evaluation Body. Please welcome him with a big hand.
Thank you and good day to everyone. I'm Kirk Siang from the Singapore National Heritage Board. First of all, please allow me to thank the organizers for inviting me to speak at today's forum. My presentation is about ICH and the creative economy, and I will be sharing about our examples and experience from Singapore. Singapore is a multicultural society because of our history and also the migration of people. And because of our location in Southeast Asia, we do have a vibrant and diverse ICH landscape. And these are just some examples that I'm sharing in the presentation today. But at the same time, we are a highly urban, densely populated city as well as a country. And because of the rapid development and changes, it does affect the sustainability and viability of our ICH. And there are many other factors that pose as challenges to the safeguarding of ICH, whether it's globalization, the evolving technology, changing lifestyles of people, as well as the population. In Singapore, we have an aging population, and that in turn affects our ICH because many of our practitioners are aging, and they have difficulties in finding young people who are willing to take up careers in cultural heritage. At the same time, there is COVID. I think everybody is familiar. But what is interesting is that COVID has accelerated the digital transformation, And this also provides us in the cultural and creative industries to look at ways, new ways of using digital technologies, new ways of engaging audiences, as well as looking at how digital consumption will change the way we consume goods and services in the future. Coming back to Singapore, of course, my presentation later will highlight some of these issues, but mainly there are economic issues, the difficulties in transmitting information and knowledge, and making our cultural heritage relevant to our young generation. I think the questions we keep asking ourselves back in our office is that how can cultural heritage be relevant? And can there be partnerships with the creative economy to safeguarding our intangible cultural heritage? We do see many opportunities of partnering the creative economy in the safeguarding of ICH. In Singapore, we see many heritage-inspired designs and products that are increasingly in demand. But I think the main question that my colleagues and I grapple with is that how can these interests then lead to improved livelihoods of ICH practitioners and not just helping the market, the designers, to profit from this. Innovation, I think, is very important to keeping our intangible cultural heritage alive. There is one interesting example in Singapore, in historic Chinatown, a shop called Xie Tian Hing. They make effigies for worship, and they ran their own little design competition to encourage designers and artists to reimagine the monkey god statue. And they came up with a variety of interesting, some of them contemporary designs of the monkey god. I think these are interesting innovations, but we also have to ask difficult questions of how will there be issues of decontextualizing, as our first speaker has talked about, or is innovation an important part to keeping our cultural heritage alive? And in Singapore, we actually have a very vibrant creative economy. Singapore is the designated UNESCO Creative City. And we also are highly connected digitally. And there's a growing interest in design, creative industries. And I think there's a lot of potential partnerships that we can have to helping safeguard our intangible cultural heritage, using the creative economy and using creative talents to help us promote greater awareness, appreciation, and encourage the transmission of ICH. My next set of presentation slides will share various examples of how in Singapore we're trying to foster creative partnerships, support innovation, empower communities, and looking at ways that we can harness digital technologies for promoting greater awareness of ICH. On creative partnerships, we've just started a new pilot project called Craft and Design. What we're trying to do is to pair up traditional crafts practitioners with contemporary designers and design studios. And through the partnership, we hope that they can come up with new innovative products that are inspired by traditional crafts and traditional craftsmanship. We were very much inspired by some of the examples that we saw in various countries overseas, including those projects in the Netherlands as well as in Hong Kong. What we hope to do with this scheme is to raise public awareness and appreciation of local crafts and to demonstrate how crafts can be revitalized through design, through innovation, and these can help to contribute to their long-term sustainability as well as commercial viability. The scheme provides funding to both the designers as well as the traditional craftsmen to help them come up with a prototype design and to co-create the product together. So the program started back in just a few months ago in July, and we ran a series of workshops in August and September to invite designers and design studios to come forward to learn about the traditional crafts, and they are now preparing their proposals for submission to the NHB. What we hope to do in the next few months is to select the winning design studios that will then work with the craftsmen to make their products together. And we hope to complete this and showcase and share the prototypes sometime in the middle of next year. In addition, we are also supporting innovation. We recently introduced an organizational transformation grant. This grant is to help our businesses, our cultural practitioners to cope with changes, especially those posed by the COVID-19, which has affected their business, their sustainability. So this is an example of a project that by Se Tian Hing Buddha Shop. It's the same shop that I mentioned earlier in my presentation. They face issue of shrinking pool of skilled handcrafters, a limited demand. At the same time, I think they are trying to see how technology can help them in the process. So that what they're doing is to start a 3D scanning project and to start compiling a digital database of the different Taoist effigies and to see how 3D technology can help them in their business, perhaps even introducing some kind of machine carving in the future. Another project is this by Tong Hong Huat Trading. It's a small business that looks at stone masonry for the making of tombstone. So what they're trying to do is to use the grant to upgrade their equipment, as well as to adopt some of the design software that can help them in designing the tombstone. So it's part of what they want to do is to improve their productivity so that they can cope with the increasing demands and also to overcome some of the more labor-intensive processes in their craft. On empowering communities, we have introduced the Stewards of Intangible Cultural Heritage Award. This is an annual national recognition scheme for practitioners who are dedicated to the practice and dedicated to the continual transmission of intangible cultural heritage skills and knowledge to the next generation. Besides giving them recognition and public acknowledgement of their importance, with the Steward Award recipient will also receive a project grant that they can then use to help continue their transmission efforts. So for example, we have Tao Guang Pottery Jungle. They are one of two remaining dragon kilns in Singapore. So what a dragon kiln is in the picture. It's basically a traditional wood-fired pottery technique to make pottery products. And they run a series of workshops and tours to educate the public. And through the grant, they've also started virtual tours and looking at ways to use digital technology to run their workshops to promote the cultural heritage. And I think this project is especially important in the COVID-19 context because COVID-19 has meant that they have they are able to, the number of visitors to the site has decreased and it's difficult for them to run workshops like before because of the restrictions in the number of people that can visit the site. So virtual and digital means become very important for their livelihoods and sustainability. Others in the performing arts and culture sector, for example, have also turned to digital tools or design to help them spread greater awareness of ICH. For example, the picture on the left is by Nam Hua Chinese Opera Troupe. So what they have done is to introduce a series of child-friendly publications to try to encourage the younger generation students to have a deeper appreciation of Chinese opera. Others have tried to use online digital tools to stage their traditional performances, such as the one on the right. It's an online dance performance so that they can continue to reach out to their audiences and to the people, despite the restrictions on performance venues and crowd sizes due to COVID-19. Besides the examples that I have presented earlier, I would also like to share some of online programs that the National Heritage Board has introduced. One example is a program called Ramadan Together that we introduced in last year during the Hari Raya Puasa season. It's a major kind of festival for our Muslim friends in Singapore. And during that time, it was a difficult time because we were in some kind of, I should say, lockdown where it was difficult to go out for visits. Many places, including the public spaces, were restricted. So technology became an important means for the community to connect and continue their practices despite the restrictions. So some of the activities we try to organize include online concerts with traditional songs, cooking demonstrations so that people can continue to cook festive heritage foods in their home. We also ran a program called Iftar Together, which is a digital conversation about the cultural meanings of Ramadan, the importance of breaking fast together. And we did the breaking of fast together online. And what was interesting is that some of these activities attracted a lot of non-Muslim Singaporeans as well, because they felt it was an easy, accessible platform to learn about another culture, which they may not have much knowledge about before the event. We continue to run some of these online programs. We did so for another major festival, the Taipusan Festival, where we were able to broadcast digital interviews with the practitioners who were able to explain the cultural and social meanings of various practices associated with the festival. We also ran a series of more fun, engaging events. The picture on the right is a storytelling event by a local singer, popular local singer called Benjamin King. So through local celebrities, we tried to promote oral traditions to a younger generation, and we were able to attract quite a young crowd with this interactive storytelling event online. In Singapore, we nominated the hawker culture in Singapore to the UNESCO list, and it was inscribed in December 2020. In the nomination effort, we also tapped on various digital technologies to help us reach out to the public. So one example was Google. Google came forward after hearing about the nomination effort. So they started working with the hawkers to try to document and photograph the 360 degrees indoor images of various hawker stores and hawker centers that's located around Singapore. Hawker centers are like, I would say, like some sort of food market or food bazaar. And because of Google's efforts, it's almost like a street view, but for the interior of the building, so that it helps people to navigate the space. It also helps these small businesses to have a stronger online presence so that people can search and find them more easily online. We also ran a kind of call for proposals under our Digital Muse program, which is an annual program that we work with artists, with cultural practitioners, and invite them to submit and create projects together that integrates both culture and technology. So we ran a hawker culture team edition back in 2020. So for example, some of the young designers, they came up with augmented reality filters that can be used on Instagram and social media. Others developed sort of soundscape of hawker centers. They documented the sounds, the familiar sounds that one can hear in hawker center. And it is a form of useful documentation effort as well. There are many efforts and projects that I've shared in my presentation. I think as our first speaker, Harriet, has also mentioned, I think there's a lot of these questions that needs to be answered and discussed as well. For us at NHB, I think we look at technology as an enabler and an important platform that can help to keep our intangible cultural heritage alive and relevant, especially to our younger generation, because the younger generation, the way that they consume information, the way that they consume goods and products or shop online, it's all through digital. A lot of it is through digital means, and it's important that we use digital technologies and design to reach out to them. But at the same time, some people have also mentioned that could there be a risk involved? Could technology replace the human hand, the human touch, and the human knowledge? And will it accelerate a loss of intangible cultural heritage? And when it comes to innovation, I think there's also discussions of whether the changes are appropriate. At what context will the changes be too much? Do we lose sense of authenticity, as some of our stakeholders will often tell us? And there's a need for commercialization, and we all agree. But there's also this risk of over-commercialization, which our speaker Harriet had touched on earlier as well. So I think these are important issues and questions that we need to answer as we look at working with safeguarding of intangible cultural heritage, as well as working with the creative sector. And what we need to do is really to put ourselves in the shoes of the practitioners and the communities. What are their wishes and aspirations? And what do they want to do? What do they want to do? How do they want to innovate and bring the practice forward? And I think it's important that we hear their views and respect that as well. I think in conclusion, I've mentioned various examples where ICH and the creative economy, the creative market, can be complementary. They can complement one another, and we can ride on opportunities offered by our digital opportunities, especially to help our ICH stay relevant for our current and future generations. But at the same time, I think it's important to monitor the unintended consequences of such commercial activities and innovation. How do we then strike a balance between the marketplace and the safeguarding of ICH? And with that, thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussions later on during the panel discussion. Thank you.
This was a presentation on the possibilities of ICH in this creative economy, as well as examples of Singapore. Thank you very much, Director Yokruk Xiang, for your presentation.
Now we'll move on to our third presenter. And this is going to be held under the theme of Local Fair Trade for Creative Value of ICH. And this is going to be given by the President and CEO at the Women's Education for Advancement and Empowerment, or WEAVE Foundation. Mitos Urgirl is the President and CEO of this foundation that was established in 2012. Also was the head of the Asia Fair Trade Organization, an alliance of fair trade enterprises, about 140 enterprises spanning Asia. Mitos Urgirl has helped to empower children and women, particularly refugees in the border regions between Thailand and Myanmar, with the belief that the leadership and elevated status of women will ultimately contribute to the families and community benefit. Please give the CEO a big round of applause.
Solidarity greetings to everyone. I am extremely honored to be part of this 2021 World Forum for Intangible Cultural Heritage. On behalf of my organization, WEAVE, I would like...
I cannot currently see your face in this. Would you mind turning on the... Thank you.
Okay. Can you see me now? Sorry for that.
Interrupting.
Okay, on behalf of my organization, WEAVE, I would like to share our work and how we contribute to the creative value of intangible cultural heritage of the indigenous communities of creative artisans on the Thai-Myanmar border. For more than 20 years now, I work with WEAVE, a foundation with a fair trade enterprise subsidiary that is guaranteed fair trade of the World Fair Trade Organization. WEAVE is an inspiring refugee-powered women's organization founded in 1990 and is dedicated to saving lives, protecting rights, empowering strong, resilient, and self-sustaining refugee and indigenous women and their communities, including the Karenni indigenous group from Myanmar. The refugee crisis is one of the defining challenges of our time. On the Thai-Myanmar border, there are now over 92,000 stateless refugees displaced, and this is for more than 30 years now, with no foresight of the future. Refugees often leave their most valuable possession and livelihoods when fleeing war and violence. What they carry are their timeless traditions, skills, knowledge, and craftswomanship, which they once used to earn a living. In their host communities, they often find themselves exposed and vulnerable. Without rights, they become particularly prone to exploitation and discrimination. And with restrictive regulations, including not being able to work, refugees face great challenges in generating opportunities and in rebuilding their lives with dignity. But is there hope? On the Thai-Myanmar border, WEAVE works in collaboration with appropriate stakeholders through multi-sector ecosystems approach to support inclusion of refugees in the recovery, development efforts, and global economy that we found are amongst the most powerful and lasting solutions available.
Mitos, I'm very sorry to interrupt you again, but we cannot see your face again. Kindly check your camera. Thank you very much.
Sorry. So WEAVE's projects offer innovative solutions to address the priorities within the framework of three goals: humanitarian and relief, development, and women's economic empowerment through fair trade. Dedicated to gender equality and the empowerment of women and their communities, WEAVE extends education and support community initiatives that protect and promote status of children and women. This is premised on the belief that quality education is the single most effective means of reducing poverty and key to their empowerment. Applying the social enterprise model with fair trade at the heart of the business is the key, which has been the inspiration and concentration of WEAVE since its inception more than 25 years ago. From the time-honored tradition, indigenous knowledge, practices, and artisanal craftswomanship of the Karenni, WEAVE facilitates ways and means for the refugee women to express, promote, and sustain artistic traditions and preserve their intangible cultural heritage. Senior women pass on the indigenous weaving, hand stitching, natural dyeing disciplines, techniques, and practices to younger women. Designs are drawn from the cultural inspirations of the women artisans, and products are co-created with WEAVE. Through WEAVE Fair Trade, the artisanal skills of women are harnessed to produce captivating products for the global market, a critical means that enables them to add value to their host communities and to secure their future. WEAVE products are not just beautifully and lovingly handcrafted by the artisans. There is a healing power in these processes, which radiates and displays the real essence of humanity. The product gives compelling narrative and significant stories of overcoming and how refugees and indigenous women can rebuild their future, and in doing so, act as significant and powerful contributors to the world economy. WEAVE, as a guaranteed fair trade, ensures that its enterprise is truly mission practicing and that it works and adheres to fair trade compliance standards, including offering fair wage payments, ensure decent working condition, no child labor, and it is addressing environmental concerns, amongst others. The Fair Trade 10 principles are designed to deal with harsh environments where power disparities and marginalization make mainstream business and trade unable to empower and support vulnerable artisans. By practicing fair trade within the refugee context, WEAVE ensures that it offers protection to refugees while also encouraging safe and fair livelihoods opportunities. Weave's work, the fair trade work of Weave is a living example of how fair trade can truly cement opportunities for refugees to become self-reliant and alleviate poverty at the households and their communities. Craftsmanship and expertise in accordance to their intangible cultural heritage. From providing refugee women living in conflict situation to improve their lives and their families, one weaving at a time, to preserving their time-honored cultural heritage through their handcrafted products inspired by the mountains in their home country, Weave brings together an enchanting collection where the artisanal skills and self-development of refugees play a central role. I hope that I have enlightened you about our work, and I strongly believe that we are part of a proof of concept that a better way of addressing refugee concerns through education, through the intangible cultural heritage and fair trade is possible. This is our story at Weave, and we hope to inspire a broader transformation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You talked about empowerment and justice through fair trade, how we can empower the vulnerable members of our population through consistent efforts and consistent interest and participation. Thank you very much for that passionate presentation. I think that there were some technical issues there, so I'm very sorry that I had to interrupt you to ask about the technical difficulties.
We'll move on to the last presentation of the day. The title of the last presentation is Synergizing Intangible Cultural Heritage for Creative Advertisement. Uchung-sup, Director of Brand Marketing Team at Korea Tourism Organization, will give the presentation. I know that you're extremely busy right now. You are, as introduced, the Director of Brand Marketing Team at KTO. And last year, he collaborated with Inarchi Band to plan a promotional video under the name Feel the Rhythm of Korean series for Korea. And this September, the sequel of the series was released, the Chusan Hip promotional video, and I know that it received a wave of response. So a big round of applause, please, for Mr.
Hello
Oh.
everyone. This is Chung Seo from Korea Tourism Organization. Also, I was a member of the United Nations, like UNESCO, because I was transferred to United Nations World Tourism Organization from Korea Tourism Organization. I worked for 2 years, and then 2007, 2008. So I can speak a little bit Spanish. ¿Tienes hablar español? And I made the Feel the Rhythm of Korea promotional clips, videos, season 1 last year. And then this time I'm using hip hop and traditional Korean music. And then mixed one, and then it is known as the mod mix, but you can see it later. But actually, even though I was in the United Nations organization, but recently I work for some Japanese section, Spanish section, domestic section. So recently I never used the English so much. So let me introduce my presentation in Korean, but I'm also proud that my mother tongue is the same as BTS and Blackpink because they are so hot, and so I'm proud of their performance. And then I can so communicate with. I'm not the army, but I can communicate with BTS and then Blackpink well. I'm so proud of that. And then. But it's a kind of intangible cultural heritage. Korean language is it. So that's why I'm now presenting in Korean my presentation. But I'm preparing for almost 1 hour. If you have, if you go to restroom, just go now. I am preparing for 1 hour, but Unfortunately, I have 15 minutes. I'll give you my presentation for 15 minutes. Don't worry. Okay. Let me introduce. First of all, title. First page. 작년에 저희가 필드 리듬 오브 시즌 1은
So last year, the Feel the Rhythm of Korea was well known for its title, The Tiger is Coming Down. And this was a combination of the Ambiguous Dance Company, their contemporary dance, and the fusion music of Inarchi Band. So it was a type of mixed performance. So I think that is why it was invited here today. And season 2 was with hip hop artists, and we have added Korea's folk song to that. So you can see that there were many videos by KTO that crafted the two, and I think that is why it was here invited. With regard to the Feel the Rhythm of Korea, I'd like to take about 5 minutes to elaborate, and the following 10 minutes, I'll be going into the sequel of Feel the Rhythm of Korea. So next slide, please. Without COVID-19, I think I wouldn't have planned out this video. As you know, KTO has had collaborated with EXO, Yuna of Girls' Generation. So we mostly focused on the artists of the Korea wave. But with COVID-19, we had to change our strategy because ads or promotional videos that use Korean wave artists do receive a lot of response from fandoms, the fandoms of these groups or these bands, but cannot expand its horizon. So what we wanted to do against COVID-19 was to make some interesting videos with Inarchi band, and also try to find a way to grab this with the Korean traditional music and folk songs to cater to the needs and demands of the MZ generation. If you look at Korean national music, if the MZ generations do not listen to that, then what would happen is they would just remain in the within the walls of the museums. In other words, it's basically non-existent. It may be like a mummy, or it's as I think it has to be in some other place where the heritage is just fixated for the visitors. But we thought that a combination of both the traditional and contemporary would be quite amusing and entertaining, and it was very successful. And we created 6 videos last year, 3 and 3. Originally, it was a 90-second video. However, this time we made 20-second, 6 videos of each, and please play the video for us.
Let's have fun. 이게 서울이고요. 서울 영상이고.
So that was for Seoul. Next is Jeonju. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, due to the BGM, we cannot hear the speaker.
It is Marine City, International Marine City. It is famous for some film festival. 여기는 강릉입니다. 이 코리안
So this is Gangneung. It's a location that's used for many ads and promotional videos. And we also added an image of the curling station during the Pyeongchang Olympics. And this is Andong. Queen Elizabeth visited this tourist destination, and we wanted to show the mask dance of Andong.
여기는 목포인데요. 남쪽의 바다.
This is Mokpo. It's not a well-known destination, but it's very well known for its traditional assets as well as its cuisine culture.
예, 이제 필드 리듬 오브 시즌화는 이렇게
So that's basically it for my presentation on the first version of Feel the Rhythm of Korea, the series. So let us now move on and to the next slide. We had a copy, a slogan for KTO, which was LCC. I worked for an ad agency, so I tend to use such terminology. So LCC, it also stands for low cost carrier, but L, I know that in 2700, the last citizen would be born in Korea. So what we wanted to do was, well, brand the locality. So first L stood for local. And C is collaboration. These days, we see collaboration amongst competitors. We've heard from NHB of Singapore. But what we're doing is also making some promotional videos with Singapore using the Merlin. And also with Pengsu, there's also this penguin character in Korea, so we're collaborating with them. So collaboration is the trend these days. So we were thinking about how we can utilize hip hop music, so we decided to collaborate with a hip hop label. And the last C of LCC is customer experience. In the past, we had customers log onto our website to have them and lead that interest into a purchase. So it was about converting their idea or their intent, and we tried to make them a member of the website, for instance, or subscribe. But we believe that everything can be our clients, YouTube, Facebook, everything is a customer at the end of the day. And our ad campaigns, if we go to a specific city, if we go to a top clothing store, it's about creating our promotional products and to collaborate with them to offer a better or an interesting customer experience. So Feel the Rhythm of Korea. Do you know Portland of the US? It's a lifestyle city. And also the headquarters of Kinfolk. Kinfolk moved on to Belgium. However, Portland is still very well known for its lifestyle. It has the headquarters of Nike as well as Adidas. Many artists all gathered together there. So what I wanted to do was to have these local cities just like Portland to turn that into a lifestyle city. If you look at Seosan and Suncheon, they do not have many assets, but I hope that they would resonate with the visitors, and we wanted to create a story that surrounds these local areas. So moving on to page 26. Well, the season 2 had to do with, I mentioned customer experience, and I read more than 30,000 comments on the 6 YouTube videos. And I was able to seek a lot of insight from that, and which was that for the last version, we call that as Chosun's hip hop. However, if you look at K-pop, we also have hip hop. I mean, RM is also a hip hop rapper, and if you look at Big Bang, their rap artists also engage in hip hop, and Taeyang also was into hip hop. So we do have these rappers. So then what we wanted to do is add this contemporary rap to our video. And in season 1 of Feel the Rhythm of Korea, Spotify wanted us to publish the music onto their platform. So we thought that maybe we can publish season 2 as well. Because for those in the ad, for only Samsung or Hyundai and these big conglomerates, it's very difficult to publish their music. So we decided to maybe try this out and make this into a music source. Stephen Barakat, do you know this person of Quebec, a very well-known pianist? He's from Quebec, a pianist, as well as a composer. And what he did was create scores on the fall of Quebec, the night of New York, and also many piano songs. It's called sonic branding, which associates that music with a certain location. So this is the title of the Feel the Rhythm of Korea Season 2. 6+2 songs. It was from two different labels, so we have a 6+2 album. And next, page 27, as mentioned, my topic was local branding. So in other words, I wanted to make that local city have a certain theme or resonate with the client, with the customers. But many people would think that this is just a music video and it does not really have any promotional content. But if you look at YouTube, there are more than 4 million hours that are posted on YouTube. And amongst this inundation of video, it needs to make sure that it resonates with the viewers. So you can see that we benchmarked Portland, Berlin, Austin, and Bajau. So I was in city marketing and as well as in convention business, so I was interested in these many cities. So moving on to page 20, we don't have a lot of time, so I've actually prepared 8 videos. Mud Mix was the most popular, which actually had an association with Mad Max. And other videos you can go and watch for yourselves in the Imagine Korea account, but I wanted to show you 4 of the 8. And particularly, there are these 4 videos that had relevance with ICH, and I would like to give you some information as we watch the video. Well, the first video was on having rappers take part in this video. AOMG and Higher Music was a part of this video. And it started off with Korea's traditional music or Korean folk song. So we added this folk song element to this hip hop video. So first, let us see the traditional Gyeongju Andong video. It's just 90 seconds, and let me give you some more information as we play the video.
Is the real filter in Korea is from this music. 이거는 젊은 래퍼.
So this is by a young rapper, Woo. And it's featured by a practitioner of ICH.
제가 여기 갔었어요. 그 경주랑 그 안동에.
So I visited Gyeongju and Andong when this video was filmed.
외국분들이 되게 관심이 많으시더라고요.
And I knew that many foreigners were interested in this video. The costumes and the masks are also cultural heritage, or it can be a form of ICH as well in this video. You can see the lion mask dance. As you know, Gyeongju was the capital of the Silla dynasty, so there are many cultural assets and many ICH as well as other cultural heritage that you can see here. What's interesting is that when we were filming this Gyeongju video, what happened was originally we had many options, and we contacted the Intangible Heritage Center to feature these elder practitioners to have them sing in the videos. So we contacted them. And when we promote Korea, if it only has tradition, it cannot be as interesting for the MC generation. As mentioned, we are a K-pop, a K-drama nation. We have Blackpink and we have BTS, and we really wanted to show the hip alleyways of Korea. So what we did was also create a video for Seoul that looked into the trendy city of Seoul using Saranga, a pansori song.
I remember like my first time. 잊지를 못해 우리 처음으로 만난 그날은 내게 마치 환상. Yeah. 수많은 사람으로 가득했던 한강 and it was so beautiful just like your face.
여기 나오는 게 킹덤에 나오는 hat도 있고요. 그다음에 한복.
So you can see the top hats, the traditional top hats, and the hanbok, Korean attire, traditional attire. And you can see that it's been converted into a contemporary fashion. And as I've already mentioned, I wasn't trying to show the tourist destination per se. It was about the people, the artists, the alleyways, and the lifestyle of that local region. So it wasn't about showcasing that tourist destination. It was about showing the lifestyle of that city.
어렵게 찾은 너는 내 사랑이구나 이리 와서 업고 너자 함께 사랑갈 부르자 꼭 잡은 너 손에 너와 나의 true romance 흩어져 있어도 같은 마음 Soul is the name so it lives in my heart yeah 꼭 잡은 너 손에 너와 나의 true romance 흩어져 있어도 같은 마음 Soul is the name so it lives in my heart yeah C-E-L-O-V-E come right with me on my city love yeah C-E-L-O-V-E come right with me on my city love yeah
그리고 넥스트는 이번에 보실 영상은
And moving on to the next video is for Seosan. Do you know Mad Max? The movie?
Mad Max? 예, 이 매드맥스 영화를 패러디한
So this was a parody of Mad Max. In Seosan, there are many mud flats. So what we wanted to do was make this into a meme of the mud flats. So this was well, immensely popular, and I became basically a celebrity because of this video, because I've been requested for so many videos.
I respect George Miller, director George Miller. That's why. 한번 보시면 다 현지 주민이 한
So if you look at this, it was all by local residents. Well, starting from, well, other than the tractor, the person that ran the tractor, everything was by local residents. It was a rainy day where they got all wet, and well, I went there early in August. It was a Sunday. I went there. It was very interesting. So why don't you enjoy this video?
소리 좀 크게 해주세요.
Can you bring up the volume, please?
아니 뭐. 이걸 좀 흔들어주셔야 돼요, 그래. Let's move your body. Into your body. Your breathing. Would you try?
시작은 이미 머리 take one without 지각이나 개볼 이래도 빠지대로 달려 I'm a mother boy 날 쳐다보지 말고 걔를 들어먹어보 평소에 걸쳐린 시선 드넓게 더 펼쳐져 버린 내 비전 이망망하고 답답한 걱정 잠깐 옆에 다가간 던져 지금만큼은 주택 다 펼쳐 너도는 지금의 기분 구름을 넘어서 노릇이네 시계 이 노을 고파 확실해 느껴져 너의 온도차 여기서 멈춰버리면 이손해야 내가 매긴 말야 그대가 천천히 호호 백발이 웬 말인가
이 영상이 이 머드맥스 영상이 최근에
This Mud Max video,
방탄소년단이 만든 거랑 동급이 됐어요.
if you look at the number of views, it was at par with BTS. So that's why there was a major press coverage on this video. And this flat was joined by 30 tractors and 80 local residents. So only the first tractor was run by an actor, and the rest was by local residents.
2 years in Spain for United Nations World Tourism Organization. 그러니까 저도 해외 근무했지만
Yeah, so I mean, I loved the Tokyo Basin, the Mediterranean, but I want to mention that Seosan has one of the 5 biggest mud flats, and I believe that this may be a tangible heritage, but in the process of industrialization, it's true that it was a full of biodiversity, but due to land reclamation, many of them are disappearing. But I think that this video has actually attracted interest of the MZ generation. Many of our speakers talked about how we can safeguard, how we can transmit to the MZ generation. But for that to be possible is that first it has to be fun, and it has to make MZ generation enjoy the contents.
요즘 그 스퀴드 게임 있죠.
So you all know the Squid Game on Netflix.
이게 저는 알아요.
For me, in my generation, and those in their 40s and 50s, they know Squid Game, but the MZ generation do not know what Squid Game is all about.
실제 저희 세대는
But for our generation, for my generation, we know the Squid Game because we actually did that games. We played those games with our friends.
We are Squid Game, but M generation didn't know the Squid Game. 그래서 점점 이런 intangible.
Therefore, in order to have MZ's interest in ICH, it has to be fun, it has to be light, it has to be enjoyable. And if we repeat this, well, the game in itself is not as interesting now for us, but for MZ, for the MZ generation, for them, it's new. It may be retro, but it's quite new retro. And I think that ICH is all about making sure that we increase the exposure to have the MZ be acquainted with this as much as possible and as often as possible. So I showed you 3 videos, and the last is the Suncheon video. Suncheon is very well known for its flats as well, for its wetlands. And let us now watch Suncheon video.
여기 계신 분들은 everyone is real people except 100 birthday people. Everyone is real people who lives in Suncheon. They are real Korea traditional provincial lifestyle. They are almost to 70s, 80s in there. But the singer is their grandson. Senior high school, 15 or 17 or something. Right there, we call it Isung, is just senior high school, almost grandson. That's why it's very hip, very marvelous, fantastic. The music is some hip. The motion is not that hip. Okay, I am now closing my speech because maybe time is up, and then filtering the season 2 I am finishing next year. I'm not sure whether I am in charge of that season 3 or not. And then anyway, intangible cultural heritage should be fun, should be easy, should be enjoyable for MZ generation. If it is just tradition, it should be go to museum or Altamira or Chauvet. So that's why I'm making my last comment. Enjoy, real, feel the rhythm of Korea next year after COVID-19 is over. Thank you very much. This is Joseph from Korea Tourism Organization. Thank you.
네, 고정관념에서 벗어나 창의적인 시각.
Yes, thank you very much. It was about a creative mindset and through ad strategies to raise the value of ICH and have that resonate with present and future generations. Thank you very much for your presentation.
We have heard from 4 presenters, and we have received some questions and comments from our YouTube channels. So we'll go straight into the panel discussion. I'm going to ask a common question to all of our speakers, first of all. Because this is intangible cultural heritage that we're talking about, this is something that is transmitted by the people to other people. We're here also discussing the importance of the youth generation and the millennial generation. And we need to have more participation and interest from the younger generation so that we can foster a continued transmission and a sustainable transmission of ICH. So in that regard, I would like to first ask a question to Ms. Harriet Deacon. What can the younger generation do to feel more of an interest in ICH transmission? What can we do to have them feel more interested in ICH transmission?
Well, thank you for the question. I think some people have already alluded to the fact that talking more about digital issues and about innovation is inspiring to the younger generation. But I particularly liked what Siwon Lee was talking about in terms of networking. And what we've seen in our Kyrgyz project on HiPAMS is looking at young people as heritage entrepreneurs and helping them to network not just with each other, but with experienced heritage entrepreneurs in the field has really helped to invigorate their interest in ICH transmission.
네, 답변 감사드립니다.
Thank you very much for that response. She mentioned that networking is going to be key. Next, moving on to Mr. Kirk.
답변 부탁드리겠습니다.
Would you like to answer this first question?
Thank you for the question. I really like what Mr. Joseph Ho shared about making culture, intangible culture, heritage exciting for the younger generation. It has to be hip and we have to speak their language. So I think some of the work that we need to do is also to understand what are the kind of platforms, for example, social media, Instagram, TikTok, how do we use these kind of platforms to communicate to them? Another area that we could work on is through schools, and not just teaching about intangible cultural heritage, but getting students involved in, say, doing their projects on cultural heritage, or for example, working with university students from the business faculties. Can they look at business-related matters concerning ICH? So that's other ways of getting the younger generation involved in actively participating in safeguarding and in interacting with the ICH practitioners directly. So that's my suggestions on this matter. Thank you very much.
네, 감사합니다. 아무래도
Thank you so much for your intervention. Yes, we can make use of platforms like the social media platforms, and they can also play a role in the sustained transmission of ICH. Same question to Mitos.
I think I would always say that when a culture is living, the tradition is alive, dynamic. Culture is dynamic, and so when a community is actually is keeping their culture living, I think that even to the young generation, who should be the duty bearers, because for a culture to survive and to thrive, the young generation should be able to continue that. So I think it is also a matter of, while I like the idea, it's true that we have to also bridge, the senior generation or the older generation and the young generation, I think it has always to go with the context. Where we are operating, we don't have electricity, we don't have access to this facility. But the refugee camp in Thailand has been there in the last 30 years. These are all artificial. Sooner or later, there has to be a durable solution for the people, you know, to go back to, there is no normalcy in their lives. So everything is artificial actually. When they have to be in the mainstream, when they have to go back to the mainstream, they have to face that there is this new technology, you know, and it would be very difficult for them indeed. But yeah, I like the idea of bridging the maybe the old and the new, but I think it has always be within the context, you know, where the community is operating, and for as long as what the community want. For example, in the community that I'm working, the struggle, their aspiration to become self-autonomous is very strong. And that's why their language, their identity, the mother tongue is very important for them, because that would keep them, you know, keep their language. Otherwise, yeah, I think with the changing in the social milieu, they will become extinct as well.
네, 지역 주도로 이루어져야 된다는 말씀
So
굉장히
you've mentioned that it's important that it should be locality led. So next to Joseph O, how can we really appeal to the MZ generation? How can we have them keep their interest in ICH? Well, I've been in this business for quite a long time.
Gave you so long speech. Sorry to say that, but last year I made the Kingdom Friends because the character, and then I am using this one because the tradition is not just tradition, because we should like it. I made the Instagram this year, and then through this year, to this Instagram, I am communicating with the MG generation. You know, most hot SNS for MG generation is Instagram. Every entertainer, every hip hopper is using Instagram. That's why you should use Instagram. And then I'm using now, for example, Singapore Molly, we are collaborating. Singapore Molly, we are also some cases we collaborate already. For example, this is Molly with competitor. Singapore is competitor, but we should do something because this is Corona-19. Okay, this is my closing comments. That's all. Thank you.
네, 앞서서 나온 SNS 플랫폼과
Yes, thank you. I believe that it's in the same vein with the fact that we have to utilize social media. So yes, characters can, I think, resonate with our MZ generation. So let us now move on to the questions for our for speakers, the questions that came in from our audience. We have a question for Professor Harriet Deacon, and I can see that she's actually connecting and answering the questions in the chat. But I know that there's also the audience here that would like to listen from you in person. So the question is the following.
So through your presentation, I was able to understand the importance of the Indigenous community. What can we do to allow younger generations to participate in ICH transmission without having the Indigenous community feel excluded? Are there any case examples?
Thank you very much for that question. I think there's some very interesting examples of Indigenous communities dealing with some of these questions around engagement with the market from the Sami community in Northern Europe. And they've got a particularly interesting project looking at ethical guidelines around heritage tourism that you could search for online, I think, as an example. And in Latin America, there's also some very interesting projects of Indigenous communities developing artisanal markets and capacity building programs and intellectual property protection in Colombia. So I would refer you to some of those.
네, 흥미로운 예시
Thank
공유해
you
주신
very
것
much for those interesting concrete examples.
다음 질문은
Moving on to the next question would be for Mr. Young.
팀장님, 무형문화유산에
So, Mr.
창의적인
Young,
기술들을 도입한다면
if we do
어떤
introduce creative
상호작용이
technology to
일어날 수
ICH,
있겠습니까?
what kind of interaction is
과도한
possible?
상업화나
Is there any way to
많은 사람들의
overcome
힘들 것 같은데
over
혹시
commercialization or
공유할 수 있는
distortion of
구체적인
ICH? Is there a way
대응안이
to overcome
궁금합니다.
these issues or challenges?
Thank you for the question. I think it is sometimes hard to determine at what point is there over commercialization, because who actually judges this kind of things? Is it the academics? Is it the people, the consumer? I think it's important that we bear that in mind. That's why in my presentation I mentioned the importance of working directly with the practitioners, understanding their challenges, their aspirations, what are the changes they want to introduce. I think it's important that we respect that, their wishes, and work directly with them. Because if we don't do that, I think they will be excluded from the potential benefits that market commercialization will bring to them. And I think that's a major problem. So I think I would say in conclusion, we do need to understand the ground, speak to the practitioners to really understand what is the boundaries that the practitioners themselves are comfortable with. And I think that will be an important way to do so. Thank you very much.
네, 아무래도 지나친 상업화의 기준은 어디인지
I
이것은
think
굉장히
that
중요한 문제일 것
over commercialization is always going to be an issue that we would have to look at and discuss, and there should be some active research in that field. Thank you very much for that response. The next question is to Mitos Urgel. In the presentation, in doing the projects, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced?
I think the last 30 years of existence of refugees on the Thai-Myanmar border, I worked in the last 20 years. Every single day is a challenge for us. And it has been exacerbated because of COVID. And then I think we all know that in Myanmar, since February, there is a war. So in the ethnic state that we are working, which is close to the border of Thailand, there are over 200,000 who are displaced. And so every day, there is that fighting. I think the challenge for us is because we are on the receiving end, we are providing humanitarian assistance. And since we don't have the capacity, big capacity to support that financially or even human resources, the COVID has been there, is with us in the last 20 years, you know, so the challenge is really like it's draining our energy, you know, the inspiration, the motivation. That's why I think with Weave, our inspiration has always been the creativity of the women, and that feeling that we should not surrender, or we should not, you know, have that defeatist feeling. But again, because we are working in a very challenging environment, so every day the challenge of, you know, the food that the refugee have to eat, you know, the health situation, the security issues, these are actually like, you know, big challenges that every day I am facing.
네, 경험 공유해 주셔서 감사합니다.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience. And just listening to what you're saying, I can see that there may be immense challenges. And these challenges are not something that can be predictable. It all of a sudden happens. There are external forces that come into play, and I'm sure that that could be very challenging. Yes, moving on to my question for Joseph O. So recently, the contents these days are quite volatile. They are enjoyed and they disappear all of a sudden. So we can see that ICH is, as it's converted into contents, there may be these limitations of maybe disappearing after a short span of time. So how can we respond to this challenge? Well, it's a very difficult challenge. For instance, if we want to convert the traditional attire hanbok, which would be the okay point? So as was mentioned by Dr. Deacon, between innovation and conservation, what would be the right balance? So for instance, last year, the Ambiguous Dance Company and Inarchi Band, if they look at that collaboration, they can see that the attire was a bit interesting. It could have been queer, and some asked, is this really Korean traditional attire? So it may lead to some controversies. So shall we keep to the original tradition, or shall we adapt this or innovate this to contemporary times? So up to what point is tradition, up to what point is contemporary? So it's very difficult to find that right balance. But my personal view, because I am basically ad person, I think that we can maybe make it more innovative if we want to uh, appeal to the MC generation. But if we go too much, if we go too far, maybe you may not think that this is tradition. You can see that on YouTube, on SNS, or social media, there are many comments, and there are many people that would just post comments for the sake of posting comments. So for those in the 40s and 50s, we may not be able to understand what they do as a play. They may be Homo mobilians, we're Homo sapiens, but they may be a completely different species in some sense. So up till now, our marketing and promotional efforts were focused on, say, China, Japan, Southeast Asia, Middle East, Europe, and US. That was what was done in the past, but no longer do we do that right now, because if you look at the 20s and 30s, they're globally the same in terms of their hobbies, their preferences, and their attitude. There is this common attitude across Gen M and Z. So I think we should take that into consideration. Thank you.
열정적인 답변 감사드립니다. 아무래도 끊임없이 가치 판단이 필요한
Thank you very
문제가
much for that very passionate response. I think that we have to continuously have all these value judgments. There's one more question to Mr. O.
And so, of course, there's an issue of converting this into a new form. But then when you utilize idol groups or boy-girl bands or celebrities, it may have a short-term effect, but I'm not exactly sure about the long-term effect. So how can we make sure that the young generation continue on with their interest in ICH? So any thoughts on this comment, please? Well, it all boils down to one single issue. It's great to utilize K-Wave, but why and for what is what we have to look into. So if we utilize BTS and Blackpink, what we're trying to do is we first have them in the middle and then create a creative based on them. So that's not the right order. We have to think about what we want to do and then move on to how. But in many cases, we would start off with a celebrity and try to fix the contents based on that celebrity. So what should happen is we need to think about the why and what, and then move on to the how. We talk about big data these days, but we just collect big data and that would carry no meaning. We have to understand why we're collecting this data and what we want to do with it, and only then can it carry meaning. So that's basically it for my response. So I want to mention, we need to understand the why and what, and understand the objective, and then set and then decide the celebrity, but we should not start off with selecting the celebrity and then fixing the content surrounding that celebrity, or else it would not be creative. The reason why we were able to successful at KTO is even before we selected the ad agency, I read multiple books. I went and visited the authors. We had discussions. We received advice and decided on what we want to do. And then we selected the ad agency and then communicate what we want to do. So that's the right order. But in many cases, what the public agencies would do is set the model first or the celebrity first and then try to build the contents, but it cannot be successful. We do have excellent ad agencies. However, they in just 3-4 weeks time cannot do everything for us. So what's important is we need to understand what we want to do. Sometimes even if we have an excellent ad agency with great ADs and CDs, they cannot read our minds. So That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that response. So we have to come up with an objective and a goal first, and then try to think about the relevant means or the strategy. I think that was very helpful. I would just like to lastly ask all of the presenters to go around and give last short answers. This is World Forum for Intangible Cultural Heritage hosted by the National Intangible Heritage Center of Korea and UNESCO ICHCAP. What is your message to our hosts and organizers for today's forum? Can I begin with Ms. Harriet Deacon?
Well, I'd like to echo what Kirk said, that we need more discussion on this question of innovation, conservation, over commercialization, and we need to really start talking about what practical tools we can give communities to help them negotiate their role in the market and take more power. And I'd also like to comment just on what Mitos was saying. You know, a lot of these discussions become very academic if people don't have the means of subsistence. And so, you know, that's the crucial first step, is to help people to get to a point where they have enjoy basic human rights and subsistence first. And then we can start debating about these other questions about how do we sustain the heritage going forward and help to prevent over-commercialization.
네, 말씀 감사드립니다. 이러한 논의가
Thank you very much for your comments. I think that we need to continue on with these discussions. Next, Mr. Young, your response, please.
Thank you. I would like to thank the organizers for really selecting this topic of creativity and the creative economy, because it's a very important topic, and I think we need to have more discussions on this area, as what Harriet has mentioned. You know, what are successful case studies and examples of how we merge culture, digital technology, innovation, because we are living in the information age, the industrial revolution 4.0, as the keynote speakers have mentioned. And living heritage, ICH, is a living heritage, so it has to evolve with the times, with the lifestyles, with the technology, in order for it to stay relevant. So I hope we can have more discussions on these areas. And thank you for the organizers for taking such an interesting topic and sharing some of these case studies with us. Thank you.
네, 말씀 감사합니다. 무형 문화유산이
Thank you very much. Intangible cultural heritage should also be developed together with the changes in the times and with the technologies. Next, we'd like to hear the thoughts of Mitos Ergo.
Yeah, I think my response is actually just an echo to confirm what has already been said. I have learned a lot from these last few days, listening to great speakers actually. So this conversation is very timely given the challenges that we are facing. And so there is really a need for us also to pivot, and the need for us to, especially my perspective is always that while we are working within this global or in this modern area, there are still communities that are disadvantaged, vulnerable. And so as what has been shared, they have to be included in the conversation. And if we are going to move towards, you know, past COVID, we have to be thinking of communities, disadvantaged communities, to be part of that moving forward, to build back not just better, but to build back fairer. I think that there is a big opportunity that Intangible Cultural Heritage is offering, and there is that big opportunity. So I think if we are able to synergize our collaboration, I think we can do better, you know. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다. 지역의 목소리를 더 반영.
Yes, thank you very much. It's important to reflect the voices in the local regions. And last but not least, Joseph O, your concluding response, please.
Present with distinguished guests, and then I was so fun, and then coincidentally, we KTO made some fusion mixed with the tradition and modern culture, because season 1 is the traditional music and modern dance, and season 2 is traditional music and K modern hip hop. But it's always difficult to, but if we live long with the MZ 세대, different Homo mobilians, it should be a target to MZ generation, to more enjoyable, more fun, more easy to adapt to access. So that's why thank you for have wonderful time. Thank you very much.
네, 팀장님 감사합니다. MZ 세대에 맞는
Thank you very much for that intervention. Targeted marketing for the MZ generation. We hope to see more from KTO next year with your more surprising and innovative videos. With that, we would like to conclude the panel discussion. I would like to thank all of our four presenters as well as all of our online audiences. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you very much to Professor Lee Seul-gi of Sejong University, as well as our presenters for being with us. The world is currently learning more of the importance of ICH, and it is not stopping on its journey to consult more safeguarding measures of ICH. This forum allowed us to rediscover the importance of communication, solidarity, and cooperation for the communities. We found hope in the new era, and we also were able to rediscover the value of ICH in the era of convergence and creativity. Even now, there are many people who are working to overcome the COVID-19 crisis. I would like to thank all of you and all of our online audiences for submitting your questions and opinions online, all the hosts and organizers and the staff for making this possible.
Thank you all the speakers and audience for your participation. 그럼 내년에도 세계 무형
And we will see you back here next year at the World Forum for Intangible Cultural Heritage. With that, we would like to conclude the 2021 World Forum for Intangible Cultural Heritage. Thank you very much.
Thank you.